Alright guys and girls, welcome back to another video of mine. Today I am going to be reviewing, or sort of reviewing, the Magnificent 7 in 4K Ultra High Definition. And what does that mean? Well, 4K is 4 times the resolution of 1080p. Means it's better, well, pretty much better resolution. So it's 4 times 1080p, which comes up to the total of 4000K, which I think works out like 8,000 something. No, not 8,000, what am I saying? 3,800 pixels or something, give or take. But then you say, well, 4K, that's supposed to be 4,000. Yeah, but the thing is, what they do, 4,000 I think is roughly for cinemas, but in sort of like Blu-ray format, because they have to dub down the 16:9 resolution or the actual scale of it to fit TVs, I think it's like 3,800 pixels or something. It's kind of weird how they do it, but it has also, I've noticed, it has HDR, which is actually, where is it? There we go. HDR, which is high dynamic range, 4K resolution, wider color spectrum. Means there's more deeper colors. So basically, when you see the skies like sort of blue, with the actual spectrum, it's much deeper blue. It's a more like a proper morning sort of blue. And then when you've got like the sun popping out, I've noticed in this film, I was watching the film earlier, watched this whole film, absolutely recommend it. The only thing about this is it's actually sort of rendered in 2K and not actually 4K. So it's like an intermediate sort of like rendering. So basically, I presume before, so basically 2K is like 25, I think it's 2560, 1440, so it's 1440p. And the actual camera lens I believe they used in this film is like a 35mm sort of lens. But the actual film doesn't actually disappoint. It kind of actually reminded me of the original sort of like Yul Brynner original film with Yul Brynner in it. And you had like, who else was in the original one? You had Steve McQueen, absolutely brilliant. The film was actually, the original was absolutely brilliant. I watched it a long time ago, and The Return of the Magnificent Seven. Now this kind of like was similar to the original. It kept pretty much true form to it, because in the original you had the ones with the Gatling guns. They had in the first original film, I think it was 1967, something like that, when they had it out. But there was one before actually. I think there was a Japanese version of the Magnificent Seven, which was the Seven Samurai, which I haven't actually seen. But I will get it as soon as they get. I don't know if they're supposed to be getting a 4K version or they're supposed to be doing a rendering version. Whether it's going to be 2K rendered into 4K is going to be another thing coming. But I heard somewhere along the lines they're supposed to be doing a sort of like an intermediate version of it. So I presume it still have high dynamic range on it, but it's a Japanese version, so there'll probably be subtitles, English or something. But what they've done, they've got some of the actual, the film has been badly damaged. So what they've had to do, they've had to redo it by frame, just to fix it, just to make it more cleaner so it doesn't look fuzzy. Now, what really annoyed me about this, well, it wasn't really actually annoying me actually. At the start, near the start, and towards a little bit going into the film, it had a sort of like an old vintage sort of what they call, so it was, not solar flares. I forgot what it's called now. They have it over the film grain. That's it, film grain. And it wasn't too bad. When I sit back a little bit away from the TV, you can't actually see it. But when you look up really close, you can see it. They've used a bit of film grain. Not too bad though. It's not too bad. But what I do is, because I like sitting quite close to the TV, even though it's a 49-inch screen. I also like sitting back towards it. And when you sit back and you see the wide spectrum of the colours, this has to be probably one of my favourites. I know it's only in 2K, so it's only 1440p, but it's been rendered in 4K, so it looks absolutely clean. Do I recommend this film? The film itself is basically 7 gunmen been hired sort of like to take on a whole army of people, like soldiers, who are trying to basically force their way into this town. They take over a town. Then there's these 7 guys that gets called up with this woman who wants them to help them, basically, to take care of these guys for them. And they would give them all what they had, which or whatever silver they had and all that, because this woman's husband had been murdered by this bloke, sort of like a dictator or something, in a way, cowboy. This is a cowboy film. Now, Denzel Washington, who's actually in this, should play in more sort of... he should play in more cowboy films, Denzel Washington. And I'll tell you why. Because he is like the sort of Clint Eastwood, the good, the bad, and the ugly sort of now films. And I Alright. Anyway, so yeah, he really should play in more like sort of hopefully what they should do is bring a sort of a good, bad and ugly remake and actually get Denzel Washington to play in it as well. He could play probably the Lee Marvin of Cowboys. The villain maybe is in a few dollars more or something. But this film, I do recommend it. I'm not going to tell much of the film, but I do recommend it, and I'm not going to spoil the film. But it is a good film, and I do recommend it. I would probably, out of 10, I would give probably 8 stars out of 10. This actually kind of took me back to the original, and I like to go back to the original to watch it, but I want to see if they make a 4K version of the original Magnificent Seven and the Return of the Magnificent Seven. And it'd be fantastic if I can get those on 4K at some point. But seeming 4K is actually only just come into into view, into people's homes and all that. Hopefully they bring a lot more, because the HDR, the high dynamic range, my god, it just blew me away. That like I was sitting there and they got like these sort of like mountains, hilltops and all that in the film, and it kind of drawed me in. The actual view distance, the actual background, the sort of like the cowboy type era, and the film grain, it kind of made it into like a sort of an old-fashioned film, but not too old. It kind of still felt like relevant, pretty much. To me it did. It felt like a brand new film, but also an old-fashioned film. So it kind of didn't take away the old spaghetti western films and all that I used to like back in the days, like Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin and all that. And like Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson, my god, a legend in the films industry. Loved him in A Family of Cops. Actually, that would be a good fucking film if they could get on 4K rendered. I don't care if it's 2K they render it in, and then render it up to 4K, so it's like in HDR. Fucking hell, that would just blow me away. And also, I would love to actually see The Godfather 1, 2 and 3 all in 4K rendered. Tell me what you guys and girls think If you've got a 4K player, if you've got 4K films like this, I did get this off Amazon. I got this for my birthday because my birthday was on the 17th, and that was actually 2 days going back now because it's the 19th today. So yes, 2 days going back now. So brilliant film. I got this ordered on the 17th, came on the 18th, and yeah, just a magnificent film. Just finished watching it, probably I'd said about a couple of hours ago, and I recommend this to anyone to watch it, even for the youngsters. I mean, this film here, for the youngsters who haven't watched any of the Clint Eastwood films, who haven't watched all the old cowboy movies and all that, get into them. These sort of films, The Magnificent Seven, even the original will still stand up in today's time and era and all stuff like that. Anyway, guys and girls, thank you very much for watching this review and stuff of it. I do recommend it, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say about this. And I'm also probably going to do a review tomorrow because it's 1:11 in the morning now. I'm going to do a review about this film tomorrow, the Star Trek Beyond. It wasn't really up to what I pretty much hoped it would be, but I'm going to be doing a review about that anyway tomorrow. Cheers all for watching. If you enjoyed this, do thumbs it up, do like it up, and also cheers all for watching. Stay safe and catch you all later.